Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Zechariah, the 9th chapter. And Lord willing, this be edifying to the elect. Now in Zechariah, the 9th chapter, this is, a lot of it is mainly prophetic. Okay, it speaks about a couple of different things. The Lord exhorts, the Israelites to be joyous in the sense of thinking about the deliverance that he's going to bring, as well as the payback that he is going to put upon the nations, all right, that have had a part in our downfall, okay, and triumphed over us. All right, so this is the book of Zechariah, chapter 9, verse 1. The burden of the word of the Lord Yahweh in the land of Hadrach, and Damascus shall be the rest thereof. Now Hadrach is a region over there in Syria, okay, and as it mentions, Damascus shall be the rest thereof, which is just another way of referring to the same region, okay, because they're both over there in Syria, okay, or the land of Aram. It says here, when the eyes of men, as of all the tribes of Israel, shall be toward the Lord. Yeah, because when the Lord does what it is that he is about to do, right, that we're about to read about, everybody's gonna have their eyes on the Lord, on the work that he is doing. Okay. It says here, verse 2, and Hamath also shall border thereby, Tyrus and Zidon, though it be very wise. Because this word that the Lord is spoke, this burden, right, that he spoke pretty much against his land, it wasn't, it was against the neighboring nations at the time, okay, but also, as we're about to read, prophetic, against the nations that have come against us today, primarily as we're about to read Esau, Edom, which in here is referred to as Tyrus, okay, or the coastal city or cities of Tyre or Tyrus and Zidon. But as we read, you'll find out that this isn't actually talking about the judgment coming upon the ancient city of Tyre or Tyrus and Zidon. So it says here, though it be very wise, and Tyrus did build herself a stronghold, and heaped up silver as the dust, and fine gold as the mire of the streets. Right, and that's the heaping up silver as the dust and fine gold as the mire of the streets is just metaphorical for the riches that they had. Okay, which, yes, the ancient city of Tyrus did build themselves a stronghold. In fact, because of where they were positioned, I believe they were actually a bit off the actual coast of the land. And so it was very difficult for certain nations to come and try to besiege them because they were a fortress on the water. Okay, and I believe it was Alexander the Greek, which if I'm not mistaken, was like one of the first to build an actual bridge from the land to that city and then take it down. Okay, but as it says here, they heaped up silver as dust because that region, okay, they had a lot of resources, right? They were a major port city. A lot of trade was going on there, and they were known as a seafaring people, right? I believe they were also referred to by the Greeks as the Phoenicians. Okay, and so it wasn't just that region of like Tyre or Tyrus and Zidon that they had control over, but you had certain areas in Africa, certain areas over the Mediterranean, that they would have their ships going back and forth. So they definitely made a lot of money. Okay, there's even something known as the Tyrian purple, okay, which was a very expensive purplish dye that would be used to make garments, right, like the purple garments. And so when you read in some verses in the scriptures, you'll see that when somebody is being rewarded For example, they'll mention them getting this like, purple robe or purple garment or scarlet colored, which is all going back to that anyway. It was expensive because it was so difficult to make. So only those that could afford it would be the ones that would wear it. Anyway, as we keep reading in verse 4, it says, "Behold, the Lord will cast her out, and he will smite her power in the sea, and she shall be devoured with fire." And that's the indicator right there. So yes, ancient Tyrus was, on the sea. Okay, yes, there were different times where they got taken down and different nations did come against them, which was obviously a judgment from the Lord anyway. However, they weren't devoured with fire. Yeah, there might have been certain sieges here and there. Yeah, they might have burned some of their cities, but they weren't devoured with fire. That is actually referring to Babylon the Great, aka America. Now, I believe in the book of Ezekiel, if my memory serves me right, the 28th chapter, it also talks about the king of Tyrus, which is referring to Esau, but he is it's written in a dark saying, so it's mentioned as Tyrus, and you might think it's talking about the actual king of Tyrus, but it is not. And that's why the context of these verses are important to help you decipher that. So this Tyrus here is really referring to America today, or Babylon the Great, which indeed they have built themselves a stronghold. They have heaped up silver and gold and acquired these riches, obviously not through righteous means, okay, but nevertheless they have. And so they are the ones that are going to be smitten, right? As it says, he will smite her power in the sea. Now, when you go to the book of Revelation, the 17th chapter, dealing with Babylon, she is referred to as the whore that sitteth upon many waters. And the angel explains to the apostle John what the waters represent, which he mentioned being the peoples, nations, kindreds, and tongues. So the Lord, like he did back then, okay, smiting these nations around, and this time he is going to smite her power, being America, by taking them down by way of these other nations, and also by way of his son upon his return. And she shall be devoured with fire. And that's going to be fire from the nuclear missiles that will be shot off in World War III, but also fire from the lasers from the chariots, right? The so-called UFOs that are going to make their appearance during World War III. Verse 5, Ashkelon shall see it and fear, which this is a region in the land of Israel as well. Okay, I believe it's somewhat, near Jerusalem. And fear, Gaza also shall see it and be very sorrowful. And Ekron, for her expectation, shall be ashamed. Meaning their hopes are going to be crushed. And the king shall perish from Gaza, and Ashkelon shall not be inhabited. And this is really just referring to the neighboring regions and the neighboring nations seeing the judgment of the Lord and having that fear come upon them. Okay, because when the Lord executes that judgment, like we read in the verses above, all nations are going to see it and hear about it. Okay, but also this region that we just mentioned, that Gaza, Ekron, that land is the land of Palestine. That land is also going to be destroyed by fire. Okay, as we read of in precepts like Isaiah the 14th chapter, right around the last few verses. Okay, and so that's why it talks about the king perishing from Gaza and Ashkelon not being inhabited. But that's only for a period of time, because after the judgment is passed, that place is going to be rebuilt back up. Okay, and it's going to be the inhabitants of the true Israelites. Verse 6. So now verse 6, the verses we read up above went into the judgment of the Lord that's going to come upon America and these neighboring nations. Okay, and now in verse 6, now we're dealing with, as it says, and a bastard shall dwell in Ashdod. And that's talking about this time. Okay, of course, from when these quote unquote bastards went over and took over that land. Okay, up until the time when the Lord uproots them from that land. So a bastard shall dwell in Ashdod, which is the land of Israel, meaning for a period of time. Okay, this nation of people that are known as this bastard are going to be in that land. Okay, and that nation of people are the Edomites, but primarily the tribe of Amalek. Okay, and you can watch some of our other videos to find out who they are today, but you have to be a bit cautious in how you address them because of modern day guidelines and YouTube guidelines and all this extra stuff here. Anyway, a quick precept for this. Okay, let's go real quick to the book of Ezekiel chapter 36 verse 5, and it reads, Therefore thus saith the Lord Yahweh, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen, and against all Idumea, which is referring to the Edomites, which have appointed my land. And what is the land of the Lord? The land of Israel. The book of, I believe, 2nd Esdras, the 5th chapter. It's either 2nd Esdras or 1st Esdras, but I believe it's actually, no, 2nd Esdras, the 5th chapter, right around the 24th, right, the 20th verse on down. It lists some of the things that the Lord favors of different flowers, of different birds, of different lands, which in the verse is referred to as pits. But of those different lands, it refers to the Lord's chosen as the land of Israel. So when he says my land here, he's talking about the land of Israel. And it says they have appointed that land into their possession with the joy of all their heart, with despiteful minds, to cast it out for a prey. So they got into that land by a declaration, right? The Balfour Declaration and all these, the help of these other Edomite nations to put them in that land, but it doesn't belong to them. Okay, so as the scriptures say, a bastard shall dwell in Ashdod. Now, when you actually go to the book of Hebrews, the 11th chapter, right, the Apostle Paul mentions how if ye be without chastisement, right, whereof all are partakers, then are ye bastards and not sons. And we know that we are not escaping that chastisement, because we are the sons of the living power. But who is the primary heathen that is escaping for now the chastisement of the Lord? Esau, Edom. Okay, because they are the bastards of the earth. But the reason they're not getting chastised is because chastisement is for correction. The Lord is not trying to correct them. He is reserving them onto judgment, which is different. Another precept here is the book of Luke, chapter 21, verse 24. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles. And let me see if I put this in red letter. Perfect. So this is what Yahushua prophesied. Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So for a period of time, they would take us down. They would, destroy the land, but take it over. Okay, for a period of time, and they would inhabit that land for a period of time until the Lord gets them up out of there. Okay, so this bastard that shall dwell in Ashdod is referring on to the modern day Amalekites that are dwelling in the land of Israel today, though it doesn't belong to them. And I will cut off the pride of the Philistines. Okay, so now the Lord now goes into some more judgment. Okay, as he says, I will cut off the pride of the Philistines. And how is he going to do that? Because the Philistines were one of the nations that put hell upon us as well. So how is the Lord going to cut off that pride? He's going to cut it off by bringing judgment upon them. Verse 7, and I will take away his blood out of his mouth, and his abominations from between his teeth. And he that remaineth, even he, shall be for our God, and he shall be as a governor in Judah, and Ekron as a Jebusite. Now, when you read this, initially you might think this is referring to the Philistines, right, that were mentioned above. And in fact, when you read this in some other translations, they do actually mention it as if it's referring to the Philistines, but it's not. Okay, this is referring to Israel. Okay, when the Lord says, I will take away his blood out of his mouth and his abominations from between his teeth, that's synonymous, right, with each other, number one. But it also means, number one, the blood out of his mouth. The law tells us that we're not supposed to eat blood. Okay, so it's likened onto the blood out of his mouth and the abominations between his teeth is likened onto us being in transgression or us committing iniquity. And the Lord taking the blood out of his mouth and the abominations from between his teeth is by removing that iniquity, by cleansing, or that from Israel. And it's not gonna be just by way of snapping his finger and then everybody is good again, but it's gonna be by way of judgment as well. And that's why it continues to say, but he that remaineth, okay, even he shall be for our power, and that he that remaineth are the elect. Okay, those that repent, okay, and don't don't have to be cleansed by way of destruction, but rather by way of obedience. They are the ones that are going to be for our God, meaning they're going to turn and seek the Lord and serve him with fear and with trembling. And he shall be as a governor in Judah, which is a ruler, right? And Ekron as a Jebusite, which Jebusite or Jebus was the original region of Jerusalem. So really as an inhabitant of Jerusalem. Okay, and a quick precept for that is here in Joshua chapter 15 and 8. And the border went up by the valley of the son of Hinnom onto the south side of the Jebusites. The same is Jerusalem. And the border went up to the top of the mountain that lieth before the valley of Hinnom westward, which is at the end of the valley of the giants northward. So this is going into more of the the regions of the land, but this precept is to show you that the Jebusite here, or Jebus, was really the region of Jerusalem. Okay, so going back here now, this is how you know that it can't be talking about the Philistines or the heathens, because it doesn't make sense for, number one, as it says, for them, for the remaining of the heathen, as it says, to be for our power and be as a governor in Judah. We know prophetically that's not going to happen. To be as a governor in Judah means you're going to be in a position of authority or rulership. That's not going to happen with these heathens. At best, after serving captivity, they're going to be given back their lands, and they're going to have some form of a normal way of life. Okay, but the rulers are going to be Israelites, primarily starting with the elect. Verse 8, and I will encamp about mine house because of the army, because of him that passeth by, and because of him that returneth. And no oppressor shall pass through them any more, for now have I seen with mine eyes. So what the Lord is saying here to the Israelites via Zechariah is, I will encamp about mine house, referring to Israel. He's likening Israel onto his house, encamping meaning he's going to surround it, but in this sense in the form of guarding it. As it says, because of the army, which are referring to the other nations, right? The armies of the other nations, because of him that passeth by, and because of him that returneth. And this is another way of referring on to, the threats or the dangers of these other nations. So the Lord is saying here in a metaphorical sense that he is going to be a protection onto his house, which are the Israelites. And no oppressor shall pass through them anymore, meaning nobody's going to have the chance to come to our land or to wherever we are and subject us under them. As he says, for now have I seen with mine eyes, meaning he's going to keep watch, okay, over us. And remember, this is prophetic, right? Meaning that there's going to come a time when the Lord is going to do this, along with the other precepts that are prophetic in the sense of us having that ultimate and permanent protection, that ultimate and permanent deliverance, that peace never to be disturbed anymore. That's all going to happen in the kingdom. Okay, when we are delivered from the final captivity. Verse 9, rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, and those are synonymous as well, referring on to the nation of Israel. Behold, thy king cometh unto thee, which this king is Yahushua, okay, the Messiah or the Son of the Most High. He is just and having salvation, lowly and riding upon an ass, which is a donkey, and upon a colt, the foal of an ass. And so this, what is mentioned here in Zechariah 9, is a prophecy at the time of Zechariah, this was a prophecy of the Messiah coming on the scene. What's this? Zechariah, let me see, is it around maybe, let's say we place this somewhere around the 520s BC. This is about a good over 500 years before Yahushua coming on the scene. Okay, so this was a prophecy of what would happen, you know, some 500 and somewhat years in the future when Yahushua would come on the scene. And this was fulfilled or at least the account of it. One account is in the book of Matthew 21, which we're going to get now. Okay, but what this is talking about, as it says, the reason he's saying rejoice is because by the Lord sending his son Yahushua, we were able to gain access to the way of salvation. Because had Yahushua not come, what would have happened to us is we would have kept on waxing worse and worse. Okay, and with no hope. Because we would have kept on in the ways of the first covenant, which was faulty. Because we weren't perfect and we couldn't keep it perfectly. So we would repeat the cycle of sin continually without ever being made perfect. And if we would never be made perfect, if we would never be able to achieve the level of obedience, okay, that the Heavenly Father wants, then we would never really achieve the reward that he has for us. So he had to send Yahushua in order for us to gain that path, that salvation, in order to get that reward, which is also mentioned, I believe that's in the book of 2nd Ezra, the 7th chapter. All right, about the inheritance and the land that is, you know, set for a man, but how shall he get it if he doesn't cross through, you know, the dangerous path to get to it, roughly paraphrasing. So let's go to the book of Matthew chapter 21 verse 4, and actually let me let me go up to 12 verse 1. Matthew 21 and 1. It says here, and when he drew nigh unto Jerusalem, this is Yahushua, and were come to Bethphage unto the Mount of Olives, then sent Yahushua 2 disciples, saying unto them, go into the village over against you, and straightway ye shall find an ass tied, and a colt with her. Loose them, and bring them unto me. And if any man say aught unto you, ye shall say, the Lord hath need of them, and straightway he will send them. So you go into the village, go into the city, you're going to see an ass and a colt, bring them to me. If anybody says anything, just tell them what I just told you, and immediately they will send them to you. Why? Because it is to fulfill prophecy. So nothing was going to get in the way of that. Even if it seems like they had to act it out, that's exactly what they did. The difference here is that Yahushua knew ahead of time exactly what it is that he had to do, what he had to act out, what his role was. So he played his role consciously, being aware of it. But for us, it's slightly different, right? Like we have some awareness of our role, okay, but we don't have 100% awareness of exactly what it is that we're going to play. We don't know if we're of the elect. We don't know what we're going to do in the future. But Yahushua knew all of this. That's why he said he came not to destroy the law, but to fulfill. Meaning there were things written of him that he had to do. And at the right time, that's exactly what he did. He went to where it was said that he would be, and he did what it was written of him to do. Deliberately. Okay, so he was consciously aware of what he had to do to fulfill prophecy, and he did it. And this is an example of one of the accounts that we're reading of. Let's see. Verse 4, all this was done that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophet, saying, tell ye the daughter of Zion, behold, thy king cometh unto thee. So what prophet was this talking about? Zechariah. And we just read that in Zechariah, the 9th chapter and the 9th verse. Tell ye the daughter of Zion. If we go back to Zechariah 9, what did it say? Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O daughter of Jerusalem. Back in Matthew 21 and 5. Behold, thy king cometh unto thee, meek, and sitting upon an ass, and a colt, the foal of an ass. So if you're wondering, how do we know in Zechariah 9 that the king was talking about the Messiah? Well, when it was fulfilled in Matthew 21, who was it that that commanded to go and bring the ass and the colt? And the disciples went and did as Yahushua commanded them, and brought the ass and the colt, and put on them their clothes, and they set him thereon. Okay. And then it keeps on going, but I think the main point is what I just read. So going back to Zechariah 9:9, this was a prophecy of the Lord Yahushua coming on the scene to do what he did, at least for us now, over 2,000 years ago. Verse 10, and I will cut off the chariot from Ephraim, and the horse from Jerusalem, and the battle bow shall be cut off, and he shall speak peace unto the heathen, and his dominion shall be from sea even to sea, and from the river even to the ends of the earth. Now, in here, in the first part, right, cutting off the chariot from Ephraim and the horse from Jerusalem, and the battle bow shall be cut off, okay, is because after the return of Yahushua, which we just read in the ninth verse, and we keep on going in the 10th verse, what the Lord is saying here is ultimately he's going to take away the need for the chariots and the battle bow and all of that, which are like the form of weapons and so on and so forth, because we're not going to have need of that, because there will be no more violence. There will be no more war. Okay, we're going to be at peace. And then it goes on to talk about he speaking peace unto the heathen, which the he is Yahushua. And why does it say that? Because ultimately Yahushua's rulership is going to be one of peace throughout the whole world. But it's going to start with the nation of Israel. Okay, you're going to have the peace is going to begin with the Israelites, and through Israel is going to permeate throughout the whole world, even amongst the rest of the heathen. All right, which is mentioned in the book of Revelation, the 20th chapter, as to how after the 1,000 years are fulfilled, not the 1,000 years where Satan is loose, but the other 1,000 years where the heathen serve captivity, that they're going to be restored back to life again. Okay. It says here, and his dominion, meaning Yahushua's rulership, which is synonymous with the kingdom of heaven, shall be from sea even to sea, and from the river even to the ends of the earth, meaning he's going to have complete dominion over everything. Okay, that's that reference of sea even to sea. Okay, so it's like saying the whole world. Now, a precept for this is in the book of Psalms, the 72nd chapter, which we know, right, through the Spirit and obviously through even the scriptures, that Yahushua in a previous life was King Solomon. Now, this is and actually, as a matter of fact, this is even proof, right, of that, because this was a psalm for Solomon, as you can see here, I believe by King David. And when we read about this, let's actually read it a little, right? So it says, a psalm for Solomon. Keep that in mind. Give the king thy judgments, O God, and thy righteousness unto the king's son. He shall judge thy people with righteousness, and thy poor with judgment. The mountains shall bring peace to the people, and the little hills by righteousness. He shall judge the poor of the people. He shall save the children of the needy, and shall break in pieces the oppressor. They shall fear thee as long as the sun and the moon endure, meaning forever, throughout all generations. He shall come down like rain upon the mown grass, as showers that water the earth. In his days shall the righteous flourish, and abundance of peace, so long as the moon endureth. And this shows you that this is also prophetic, right? Because this was a psalm for King Solomon. And though during the time of King Solomon's reign, it was peaceful, that peace didn't last as long as the moon endureth, because the moon is not destroyed. It's still enduring, but yet King Solomon's reign ended. So that peace, that eternal peace, that would come by the spirit that King Solomon had, right, which is Yahweh Shai, right, the same spirit, would actually come in his second dominion, you could say, right, when he makes his return in this time to reign forever. Okay, that is when that peace is going to endure forever, as the moon endureth. But the point here is in verse 8, as it says, he shall have dominion also from sea to sea. Remember, this is a Psalm of Solomon. And it says here that he will have dominion, rulership, also from sea to sea and from the river onto the ends of the earth. Guess what? That's the same thing that was mentioned here about Yahweh Shai. His dominion shall be even from sea to sea and from the river even to the ends of the earth. Okay, and the reason it's so is because it's talking about the same person. All right, just different time periods. So continuing in verse 11, as for thee also, by the blood of thy covenant, I have sent forth thy prisoners out of the pit wherein is no water. The blood of thy covenant was the blood of Yahweh Shai, okay, by which the Lord established a better covenant with us to deliver us, as it says and to make us righteous forever. But as it says in the book of Hebrews, right, let me actually get that real quick. Hebrews 8:6, but now hath he obtained a more excellent ministry, that he is Yahweh Shai, by how much also he is the mediator of a better covenant, which was established upon better promises. And how did he do that? By way of his blood. And it was through the blood of Yahweh Shai that the Lord established that covenant with us. And because of that, okay, or through that, as it says, I have sent forth thy prisoners out of the pit wherein is no water. That is metaphorical. The pit wherein there is no water is likened unto being in a position of destitute, being destitute, all right, and really about to perish. Okay. And so how did the Lord send us forth out of that pit wherein there is no water? Right, likening on to Ezekiel 37, the valley of dry bones. He did that by way of Yahweh Shai, because through Yahweh Shai's blood, through his sacrifice, we had now been given a way to salvation. Okay, that water representing the truth, the way of salvation. It became opened onto us, and you can think of that metaphorically as the Lord delivering us out of that pit wherein there was no water, so that we wouldn't perish. Okay, but rather we would gain life through Yahweh Shai, through the blood that he shed. Okay, so in a nutshell, the Lord brought to us the way of salvation that we should not perish, and that's likened unto the prisoner being taken out of the pit wherein there is no water. And like I mentioned before, the scriptures talk about how he that believeth on me, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water, and those rivers of living water represent this truth. Verse 12, turn you to the stronghold, which the stronghold represents this truth as well. And a precept that we can actually tie in here is the book of Proverbs, chapter 18. Let me see, I think it's 18 and 10. So it says here, the name of the Lord Yahweh is a strong tower. Guess what? A strong tower is also a stronghold. The righteous runneth into it and is safe. Now, it says here the name of the Lord, but guess what? The name of the Lord is the beginning of this truth. Okay, the name of the Lord is a part of this ministry, is a part of this truth. Okay, so turning you to the stronghold starts with the name of the Lord anyway. All right, and that stronghold is this truth. So turning, and ultimately we know the elect are the ones that are going to do this. Ye prisoners of hope. How and why are we prisoners of hope? We are prisoners of hope. And what is our hope? Our hope is that the Lord will deliver us from this life, this captivity, this cycle of death and sin that we are in. And therefore we are prisoners because we are locked up in this way of having to serve Yahweh Ba'asham Yahweh Shai. Not that we don't take value or delight in doing so. Nevertheless, we don't have an option but to do it, because we are hoping that in doing so, we would gain that salvation. Okay, so We are likened unto prisoners of hope, having no other way but to serve the Lord, right? And give our bodies as a living sacrifice and perform our reasonable service as servants of the Lord until our hope comes, that we may be freed from this position that we are in. Even today do I declare that I will render double unto you, which the Lord is saying here by the mouth of Zechariah. Rendering double, meaning he's going to bless us, okay, double for the things that we have had to go through. And that's why, as you keep on reading, he's really exhorting, okay, if you look at the whole message, he's really exhorting Israel to look forward to these things. Verse 13, when I have bent Judah for me, fill the bowl with Ephraim. Now, let me actually keep on reading. And raised up thy sons, O Zion, against thy sons, O Greece, and made thee as the sword of a mighty man. So the Lord here is now likening Judah and Ephraim, which represent the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom, and as a whole represents the nation of Israel, likening us onto a bow and arrow, or a weapon that he is going to use, okay, to come against or take down or subject these nations under us, primarily starting with Esau. That is who the Greece represents. Okay, so when it says here, I have bent Judah for me, the Lord is likening Judah onto the bow. And fill the bow, which is Judah, with Ephraim. So how do you fill a bow? By putting an arrow in there and pulling it back. So he likens Judah onto the bow, he likens Ephraim onto the arrow. It says, and raised up thy sons, right, Israel, O Zion, against thy sons, O Greece, which here the O Greece is referring to the Edomites, and made thee as the sword of a mighty man, referring back to Israel. Just like he likened us to a bow and arrow, he's also likening us here onto the sword of a mighty man. And I believe there's a precept in Jeremiah, if I'm not mistaken, which the Lord said, with thee will I conquer, with thee will I, basically take out the horse and his rider, and so on and so forth. Verse 14, and the Lord Yahweh shall be seen over them. So this is all going into the time of the Lord raising us back up and delivering us. Okay. And so it says, and the Lord shall be seen over them. And this is going to be at the return of Yahweh Shai. So yes, the Lord here is in all caps, which is Yahweh, but how is he going to make that return? It's going to be through Yahweh Shai. He's going to send his son back, and he is going to be seen over them, because he's going to come in his chariot, which is going to be above. And that's why the scriptures mentioning all eyes shall see him. And his arrow shall go forth as the lightning, which that represents the lasers that are going to be coming forth out of the chariot of, or the chariots of the Lord. And also you're going to have missiles flying at the same time, causing destruction. But here it likens the arrows as lightning because of how fast, okay, they're going to be, getting shot forth, and the destruction they're going to be committing. And you can read more about that in 2nd Ezra, the 13th chapter. And the Lord Yahweh shall blow the trumpet, and shall go with whirlwinds of the south. And those whirlwinds represent the destructive force, all right, that is going to be at the appearing of the Lord, that he is going to bring. Okay, also, once again, the missiles and the chariots and whatever other forms of destruction the Lord unleashes upon this place at that time. But that blow of the trumpet is that final trumpet, which signifies the destruction of this place. Okay, by which the elect would have to be delivered out of here, which I believe is mentioned in the book of Job. If my memory serves me right, I believe it's Job, the 20th chapter. Okay, but I may be wrong, but it's in the book of Job for sure. All right, it talks about how in 6 troubles he shall save thee. Right, yea, I think it's like yea, even. Let me just get it so I don't. 6. Oh, actually, Job 5. Look at that. So it's always good to get that precept. Anyway, it says, he shall deliver thee in 6 troubles, yea, in 7 there shall no evil touch thee. Which just links up with Revelation when it talks about the trumpets that were being blown. That seventh trumpet was the sounding of that seventh trumpet is the commencing of that destruction. Okay. And that's why it talks about being delivered in 6 troubles, and in 7 no evil touching thee, because the elect will be delivered by the time of that destruction. Verse 15, the Lord Yahweh of hosts shall defend them. Defend who? Israel. And they shall devour and subdue with sling stones, and they shall drink and make a noise as through wine, and they shall be filled like bowls and as the corners of the altar. Now this is written in a metaphorical way. Okay, the Lord is going to defend Israel. Now them devouring and subduing with sling stones and drinking, it is referring on to the you know, the, how do I put this into, let me actually look up this other translation. I think NLT puts it in better context, right? Or better words. So it says, the Lord of heaven's armies will protect his people, and they will defeat their enemies by hurling great stones. They will shout in battle, which the stones are also likened onto the missiles, right? What's the name of that kind of stone? If it comes back to me, I'll say it. But as it says, and they shall shout in battle as though drunk with wine. Okay, and they shall be filled with blood like a bowl, and that's just referring on to the amount of destruction. Okay, or what's a better word to use here? Yeah, I guess destruction would be the better word to use here, that the Lord is going to bring also by the hand of his people Israel. And that's why it's likened onto them, us being filled like bowls and as the corners of the altar. Now, when you read in the law, it tells you that during the ritual for the offerings, the priest would put the blood of the animal upon the horns of the altar. Okay, so once again, this is just written in a metaphorical way, but it's really emphasizing the Lord using Israel, obviously starting with Yahushua, but the Lord using Israel to devour our enemies. Okay. And another precept for that is also, I believe, Micah, might be Micah, the 4th chapter. Just want to make sure that's the one, where he talks about making the hooves of Israel like brass. Let's see. Yeah, Micah 4 and 13. So you can read that. And that's a precept as well. It says here, verse 16, and the Lord Yahweh their God shall save them in that day as the flock of his people. And who is that them? It's the nation of Israel, but it's really starting with the elect. They're the ones that are going to be delivered in that day, the day of the Lord's deliverance, as the flock of his people. For they shall be as the stones of a crown, lifted up as an ensign upon the land. And when you look at the stones of a crown, we're not talking about some pebbles or beach stones. We're talking about precious gems and jewels. Okay, which is likening is another way of describing the glory, okay, that is going to be bestowed upon those that are delivered of the Lord. Okay, but also, how are they going to be delivered by the Lord? By way of those chariots, okay, that are going to lift them up, as it says, as an ensign upon the land. Which an ensign, I typed it in here. It says it has multiple definitions, but an example is a military rank, a flag, a badge. So something that is displayed. Okay, and there are also other precepts that liken the chariots as to like material or colors of different stones, like beryl and all these kinds of other colors. But long story short, it's just talking about the glory in which the Lord is going to deliver, all right, his elect. Salakia. Verse 17, for how great is his goodness, and how great is his beauty. Corn shall make the young man cheerful, and new wine the maids, which is referring to the time of the kingdom. Okay, so when it talks about like the corn and the wine, that's the signification of peace. Okay, and not wanting or not lacking anything. All right, which is going to come for the nation of Israel in the kingdom of heaven. And that brings us to the end of the book of Zechariah, the 9th chapter. Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.